But I know from experience down here, if I put these in the ground right now and then we get a hard rain in the next few days and the soil stays wet for a while, some of these will. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? I hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. It is Tuesday, February 7th here in South Georgia, and it's starting to feel like tater time. And I think I'm going to plant some taters here in the next few days, at least in our raised beds. Still going to hold off probably another week on our in-ground taters. So if we want to plant raised bed taters in the next few days, we got to get our taters ready. So in today's video, we're going to check on our taters that are green sprouting underneath the barn there. Go ahead and cut some of those up. Got to get these two big raised beds in the back here ready to plant taters. Got to do a little cleanup there, pull up some drip tape and stuff. And then we're going to head on over to the greenhouse. Found a few more tomato varieties that folks had sent us, and I got a little extra room in one of the trays, so we're going to try to get those planted. So here's our 7 varieties of taters that we got from Wood Prairie Farm. We had these in my office closet where it's nice and dark and warm for about a week until we started seeing some sprouts. When we noticed that they had broken dormancy, we moved them out here where they'll get a little bit of light and a little cooler weather. Now we need to grab 4 of these boxes. Not going to do the ones that are going in the ground, but going to grab the 4 varieties that are going in the raised beds and cut them up. So the 4 varieties that are going in our raised beds are Elba, then we've got Sharp O'Meara, then we've got Rose Gold, and then lastly this Rose Fin Apple Fingerling. Now before we cut these taters, let's revisit that experiment we did last year, right here where these raised beds are now, where we compared the yields from planting whole taters versus cut taters. So in that experiment, what we found is that if you take side by side, plant a cut seed tater piece here, plant a whole tater here, that you will indeed get a higher yield or a larger harvest from this whole seed tater right here. However, it's not double what you get from that cut piece. So if you take into account how many pounds of seed taters you're using, you're way better off cutting these up, stretching out your seed tater stock a little bit, and that's how you can really maximize your harvest. Now if you've just ordered a pound of taters like we did for this Elba variety here, and maybe you just have 1 container to plant taters in, maybe you're kind of limited on space, and yeah, go ahead and plant the whole one. It's not going to hurt anything. But if you really want to stretch out your planting area, you'll want to cut them up. So from that experiment, we know that cutting up these whole seed taters does indeed give us more bang for our buck as far as our seed tater investment goes. And in that interview we did with Jim at Wood Prairie, he kind of verified that as well. He said they cut up their seed taters too before they plant them. They're not out there planting whole taters. Now you can see this Elba tater here has some nice sprouts on it. So if we're going to cut it up, how should we cut it up? What's the best way to cut it up and still maximize yields? So Jim says what they've found through all their experiments and trials over the years, that the perfect seed tater piece is about half the size of a large egg. I think he said it was around 2.5, 3 ounces or so. Don't quote me on that, but I remember he said it was about half the size of a large egg. Now in the past, I have, and I've seen other people get pretty frugal with cutting up their seed taters. Some people just take their knife and for this little sprout right here, this eye right here, just cut that off, just cut a little sliver off there and plant that. And yes, that will make a tater plant and it will make taters. But we're going to go with Jim's advice this year and try to have all our seed tater pieces about half the size of an egg. He also mentioned that you want to try to have a more blocky or square piece. Obviously we can't get something square from something that's round here without, peeling it. But we want to go with a blocky piece about half the size of an egg. So in the case of this tater right here, which is about the size of an egg, we just want to cut this one in half. Now, I guess there's some strategy here in cutting it in half. I probably want to have equal sprouts on each piece. So I kind of need to look around here at all the sprouts and figure out a good place to cut it so I get equal amount of sprouts on both halves. So on this one, I've got several sprouts on this side. Got one big one right there, some more coming along right there. So I'm gonna just cut it right here, right down the center there. I want to be careful not to break off these sprouts. But there we go, about half the size of an egg. Maybe not exact, but that's what we're going for. Now this one here is shaped a little different than that first one, and instead of cutting it this way based on the location of all the sprouts, I think I'm going to cut it this way. So I'm going to cut it down the center here just like that, and then we've got our 2 pieces. So we got all those elbow taters basically halved there, and so with this piece right here, if you wanted to get really frugal with it, you could cut this up some more, just as long as you had 1 sprout per piece. But according to Jim, you might be compromising your yields a little bit by doing that. You don't want to plant too small of a piece. You want to make sure you got at least half the size of an egg. So now we need to cut up these Sharp O'Meara taters. Now most of the ones I got in the bag are about this size of an egg, so we'll need to cut those in half just like we did the elbows. But I got a few like this that are kind of small, already half the size of an egg or maybe a little bit smaller. So we don't need to cut these, we'll just leave these like they are and plant these whole. We're going to cut these bigger ones. And then we'll do the same thing with these rose gold taters. Got to be a little bit careful with these because the sprouts are a little bit bigger. I don't want to break those off if I can help it. I'm just going to cut these down the middle just like we did those others. So we got our 2 pieces there. Check out the inside on those rose gold taters there. Man, that's pretty. I bet those are going to be really tasty. And then we have our fingerlings here, which puzzled me a little bit, wondering, do we use the same half egg size rule with these? These aren't round like those other seed taters. They're a lot smaller. We get a lot more per pound. So I wasn't sure, so I texted Jim the other day and asked him, and he said with the fingerlings, for the most part, they just plant those whole. I guess if they've got a real big one, they'll cut it in half. But for these little ones like this right here, just plant them whole, he said. So now that we've got these cut, what do we need to do? Can we go ahead and put these in the ground, or do we need to wait a few days? Well, Jim said they cut their taters and put them right in the ground. They don't wait. But I know from experience down here, if I put these in the ground right now and then we get a hard rain in the next few days and the soil stays wet for a while, some of these will rot on me. So we usually wait a few days, let it kind of heal over a little bit, form a scab or a wound there on that cut side, and that whole process is called suberization. Now you'll hear of some folks coating their cut seed taters in sulfur or lime, and that can help, but I've always found just waiting, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 days. You can wait a couple weeks after you cut them if you want, but just waiting a few days for that to heal over and then putting them in the ground. So we're going to put these right back on this rack here, where they'll stay nice and cool and dry, and in just a few days the babies will be ready to plant. So now that we got our taters ready, or getting ready, let's go get these beds cleaned up so we can plant in a few days. So these 2 tall raised beds here, where we're going to be planting some of our taters. We'll have some that go in ground as well, and I think I can get 2 rows of taters in each of these tall beds. So in this bed we need to do a little bit of harvesting and then some cleanup. We've got some straggler, pak choi and mustard there, just a few plants that survived the Arctic blast. So we'll make sure we get those before we start scratching around in there. And then over here, not really anything to harvest. The Arctic blast got most all of our lettuce, so we just need to pull up that drip tape and scratch around in there a little bit. So I've got a couple of our produce bags here, and I'm just going to get the good looking leaves off here. Not going to worry about that stuff that looks kind of rough. I have enough for a little small pot of greens, not a big pot, but it's worth saving. And for this pak choi here, I think I'll just mix it in with the mustard. Just cook it all together. Alright, so we got us a little bag of greens there, enough for a small mess. Now let's work on getting this cleaned up. Alright, first thing we need to do is get this drip tubing out of here. I don't like using drip tape or drip tubing on my taters. Just like to hand water them if they need it. So we need to get this pulled out of here. Now when we pull these out here, just like that, if we didn't have this valve here, we would need to plug those holes, otherwise we're going to have water spraying everywhere when we water the rest of the beds. But the benefit of having this valve here is we can just shut this whole bed off right there. We don't have to worry about plugging those holes. We can just stick these right back into those holes when we want to use drip tape in this bed again. So I'm going to get these lines pulled up, and I've got some staples right here holding it down. I got to make sure I get those as well. We don't want those poking anybody when we're planting taters. Alright, we got our staples up. We got our drip lines here. We'll just put these underneath the barn. We can save them. They're already cut to length. They're ready to go whenever we need them again. Now we've got all our tape and stuff out of here. I'm going to do some heavy scratching with this little 3-prong cultivator. If I find that some of this stuff doesn't break down the next few days, I may end up just kind of raking it out. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of scratch it all up, turn it all over. And besides mixing this up and getting rid of some of them weeds, another benefit of doing this is just adding a little bit of disturbance like that will tell any of them fire ants they need to get further and find another spot to build a bed. All right, I'm good with that for right now. We'll see how much of this stuff breaks down, like I said, and if we need to pull some of it out just to clean it up before we plant taters, we will. But I'm hoping out here in this hot sun that all this stuff kind of breaks down over the next few days. Now we need to do the same thing with this bed right here, although it doesn't have near as much vegetation in it. We have drip tape instead of drip tubing, the same concept. We're just going to pull this tape out of here. Not going to worry about plugging those holes. We're just going to turn that valve off right there, and we can save these lines of tape for another day. So now the tape is gone. This bed here is pretty clean. Not a whole lot of scratching to do, but I got a decent amount of fire ants right over there. I'd like for them to get gone. I may have to put some grits on them to take care of them before we plant taters. One thing I do know about fire ants is they don't like disturbance. So usually, if you aggravate them enough, they'll move somewhere else. All right, that there should be pretty good. And I might come out here tomorrow and do this again just to keep them fire ants from reestablishing over there in that corner. So probably not on the next video, but hopefully on the one after that, it'll be tater time. Now let's go inside the greenhouse here and check on some of those trays we planted in the last couple videos. So today is Tuesday. We planted this tray, or 3/4 of a tray of tomatoes, on Saturday. So just about 3 days ago. Nothing popping yet. Probably a little too soon to be seeing anything like that. But I would imagine maybe in the next 2 to 3 days, we'll start seeing some little sprouts there. Going to be a while on these peppers here, which were just planted 2 days ago. So we're just letting them stay nice and warm here. Probably need to dial back my thermostat there a bit. It's showing 94 degrees right now, which is getting a little too toasty for my liking. I'd like to keep it between about 85 and 90. So for that tray of tomatoes where we didn't plant the whole tray, I told you on that video, I'm sure I can find something else to fill those 6 rows there. And I did. So a lot of times people send us seeds and I just kind of put them in a little container there. Sometimes I forget where they are and then I find them again. And I found some that people have sent us over the last year that we should probably try. So the first one I've got here is from our good friend Mark. He does a lot of tomato trials like we do, and he says this Italian heirloom right here from Fruition Seeds is a mighty fine tasting mater. So we're going to plant some of those. What else do I got here? Got some of these that were sent to us. It's a variety called Black Beauty. I think I've heard of this variety before, but I've never grown it. And then we've got these seeds right here that really don't have a name. It just says W on it. So I think a guy named David in Wisconsin sent us these, and he said if you want to grow a massive monster mater, these are the seeds you need to use. So we're going to plant some of these W maters and see just how big a one we can grow. So we're just going to do 1 row each on these varieties here. I'll probably only plant a couple plants, but we'll have some extras to give away. We might have some friends that want to try growing some W tomatoes too. And this stuff's already kind of pre-moistened from watering it the last few days. So we just need to get our holes in there and put our seeds in the holes. And it appears this Italian heirloom here is a paste tomato. It's been a long time since I've grown any paste tomatoes. A lot of people grow only paste tomatoes for making sauce and stuff. We usually just make our sauce, canned tomatoes, everything out of the big tomatoes. But these paste tomatoes are supposed to be especially good for making pasta sauce and stuff like that. And now for our W maters here. I just like saying that. And if David is watching, maybe he can comment below and give us some more information on these supposedly monster maters. Alright, let's put some perlite on these. Go dogs. And then we'll get out of this hot greenhouse. Probably going to be time to roll up the curtains here before too long. Whew. It's a good 20 degrees cooler out here than it is in that greenhouse there. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I'm getting excited for tater time. I hope you're getting excited for tater time as well. And let me know in the comments below how you cut up your seed taters, if you cut them up at all. Are you a real frugal seed tater cutter and just get a little sliver there and plant that? Are you cutting them in half, or are you just planting them whole? And as always, you can find links to our affiliate partners in the description below. Companies like Ollie Gardens, where we got our raised beds, and Wood Prairie Farm, where we got our seed taters. Got some coupon codes for some of those companies so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we got our fig trees for sale. Got a few seeds listed on there, garden blog, recipes, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life.